if you're here. If you're not here, get here or watch the replay and leave a comment. I have a friend of mine from Canada, Polly Nation. Polly's a really good dude, and he was hanging out with Kev Baker and I when we were doing our stream. He was in the chat, and shortly after the chat, he mentioned that he had a Mandela effect theory he wanted to share with me. And so my brain said, well, that'd be a good live stream because I have a lot to say about the Mandela effect, including a personal Mandela effect I will share after we talk with Polly. So we're just going to kind of go and see where this goes. And before I give any more introductions or any further ado, Polly Nation, my friend, how are you?
Doing pretty good, man. I'm a little bit awesome today, actually.
I'd wager you're probably a little more than a little bit awesome.
I'm lucky to be alive. I almost got struck by lightning yesterday. Literally,
What?
within 10 feet. The bolt hit, literally within 10 feet, and I was inside my own apartment.
Okay, so for one, I thought you were on the metric system in Canada, and secondly, you were in your apartment and the lightning bolt hit just outside or where?
So I live on the top corner unit, northwest corner unit, top floor. And they're redoing all my balconies right now, so they have these rigs set up with the elevators that bring the guys with the jackhammers up to chisel off the bad part of the balcony, and they're just left there over the weekend. And we had a storm yesterday, and literally there was a spark that came out of one of the sockets in my wall. I didn't experience any power loss or anything like that, and I was just like, I heard it zap. And then all of a sudden, this huge boom. And so yeah, lightning clearly must have hit the corner of my building right where I was. It was it was pretty terrifying, to be honest. Lightning.
Sweet. That's amazing to me because for me, in Colorado, we have these thunderstorms that are of epic proportions. And the lightning blows stuff up all the time. And I've never been afraid of it personally because I know I'm not the tallest thing out there. But when it hits your building and you're nearby, I imagine that's a little bit scary.
Well, here's the thing. My building's not the tallest thing out there.
Really?
Yeah, there's a building at least twice my height right next door. Like you could hit it with a baseball throwing it. Like it's right there, but it chose to hit. I think it has something to do with these metal wires that they use to make the elevator go up and down on the outside of the building for the construction guys. I don't know. Maybe it's something that attracts lightning to that or something.
Or I have.
Either
we
way.
lost you there for a minute.
Oh, sorry. Either way, I feel like I'm lucky to be alive. 3 feet closer, I probably would have fried all my gear, and yeah.
Wow. But that's not what we came to talk about, was it?
No, clearly. Okay, so there's one thing that I've noticed about the Mandela effect that not a lot of people are talking about, and that is the whole copyright law and copyright infringements. And there's, if you just change one or two words, you can get around the copyright laws. And so I'm not saying that the Mandela effect doesn't exist, but there's a lot of things, especially in the written perspective, like when people say that words in on cereal boxes have changed, or on children's books have changed, or even in the Bible. A lot of times I think that can get around to just being somebody that wants to get around a copyright law so they can sell books.
That is a super interesting perspective. And it makes me beg a question to you that if there were a corporation called Chick-fil-A that was CHICFILA, then did another corporation take them over and spell it CHICKAFILA?
No, not necessarily. They could have just used that and basically just harvested their the other company's data somehow. using something completely different. This is where it gets really weird because back before the internet and back before all this data gathering was going on, um, you could easily get around copyright things like this. And like you could change, you know, Fruit Loops to Fruit whatever, and it wouldn't really matter as far as the local standpoint would go. Like it would, nobody would even really know about it on the other side of the country. But now it's so out there that there's other laws in place, and I mean, it basically boils down to whether or not you can prove it's intellectual property. If you can get around the internet, the intellectual property part of it, then you can rip off whoever you want.
Okay, so I'm trying. I'm sincerely doing my best to follow your supposition. If we can circumvent copyright law and we can change Berenstain Bears to Berenstain Bears, what does the company who does that gain, and how is that how does that tie into the Mandela effect?
Okay, so what the company would gain from, say, making a different version of the Bernstein Bears? That's a great example because has anyone? I haven't actually looked at this. I'm actually a little bit embarrassed that I haven't looked into this prior to the show, but it was a little bit off the cuff, so I didn't get a chance to go this far. But it would be interesting to see if anyone could get their hands on two books that were spelled both ways and see if the stories were exactly the same. Because I'll bet you they're not. And I'll bet you the reason why they're not is because it's a copyright law, and because you're allowed to change a certain amount of letters in a title, it makes it your own. And the artwork is subjective. So someone else could say, yeah, but that's the Berenstain artwork. That's the Berenstain storytelling. But another person could say, but yeah, this was somebody else who was inspired by them, and they just used the same art style, which is not intellectual property. And so that's how they get around it. And so I think what's happening for a lot of these, especially for the Bernstein ones, is I think there's both books out there. And I'll bet you, I'm not going to go out and try to find these books because I'll just look weird doing that. But but I bet you if someone finds both books, it'll be completely different stories, completely different narratives, completely different ways of telling the story, and they'll be just completely different things on their own.
Okay, so that leads me to the obvious question. You do not subscribe to the Mandela effect as a phenomenon in this reality.
Okay, it's not that I don't subscribe to the effect. What I have a problem with at the get-go was the term Mandela effect, because there's a movie from the 80s called Cry Freedom, and it's about a man named Stephen Biko. Okay? He was the man who was beaten to death in prison, not Nelson Mandela. That's what they're. I mean, I think somebody went back in time and renamed the Nelson Mandela effect from Stephen Biko. It should have been called the Stephen Biko effect, or something, because Mandela did not die in jail.
Well, okay, so the whole reason they kind of dubbed it Mandela effect is because people believe in this timeline that he died in prison, and there are other people that remember him going on to be the president of South Africa and having a life and divorcing his wife, and then she became the president. So I don't know that it's specifically to the Stephen Biko murder in prison, but they remember two different timelines about Nelson Mandela. And then so they coined it that, which they probably shouldn't have, I agree. But there are other things that have transpired that we don't remember equally.
Well, I think this is where we're starting to scratch the surface of how powerful the media is at programming the masses. When the Mandela effect first started circulating around on the internet, I remember thinking, "Wait a minute, this sounds like Stephen Biko. They're just confusing it because everybody saw the movie, and everybody was." Because a lot of the people that believe in the Mandela effect are kind of, I think, from a certain demographic of age group. I mean, you won't find a lot of people that are, I would say, you would find less people in their late 50s to 60s that would even consider the Mandela effect to be even a possible concept. Whereas once you get below, I'd say probably about maybe 35 or younger, you probably also wouldn't get anybody that's really never even heard about it because they haven't been alive long enough to experience any of those kind of things yet. So it's kind of a selective, like the Mandela effect is only going to work on a certain age group anyways.
So they're targeting Gen X.
Or they're targeting the one that's in between, the Xennials. Have you ever heard of the Xennials?
No,
Well,
that's not a thing.
it is a thing, man. Look,
It can't be a thing.
it's a thing, man. Xennials, it's a 10-year. It's like a selective generation gap, and I like talking about it because I'm in it. It's like, yeah, we're special. We're alive right at the right time where everybody starts to lose their mind and technology starts to get really cool at the same time. So we're alive. We're alive when we could still go out and play. We had to be home when the street lights were on.
1995-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, so and Leslie Dickey, and I wish she would change the way she spells her last name, Dickey, because it creeps me out a little bit. But
just call her Cackles.
She says Black Tom Island. Do you know about Black Tom Island?
No.
You don't?
No.
Okay, so allegedly the first terrorist attack on US soil Island was Black Tom Island. You don't?
No.
And if you have I don't know if you're on a phone or if you're on a computer, but if you have the capacity to go look up Black Tom Island, there was this plot where these people came into New York and they brought explosives and nobody had ever heard of it. But if you look at the official story of Black Tom Island, it's actually a thing in their history.
Never heard of it. I will definitely check into that.
I kind of wish you could check into it on the fly here because it was a mind boggler for me. I didn't really ever like history until I got out of school, and then I understood how important it was to know from where we came. And this Black Tom Island popped up like 3 or 4 years ago. And apparently that was the biggest terrorist attack on the U.S. until 9/11.
Really?
Yes. And I'm not kidding. And it's a thing in this reality.
Well, I don't know if that's got anything to do with the Mandela, because that could have been just something that I'd never heard of. There's a lot of things, the Mandela thing, where I'm like, well, I don't remember which one it was, but a lot of them, I remember exactly what it was, and people are like, no, it wasn't that, it was this, and I just can't. I don't understand how they can think that especially when they're the same age as me.
Right, yeah. So you're curious, and we check our memory, and we're like, okay, do I remember it, or was I told it, and how confused am I about it? And it is kind of a deal, but the Black Tom thing's a big deal, and I think it's worth you investigating. Bobby Starr, the explosion, which occurred on July 30th, 1916 in the New York harbor, destroyed some $20 million worth of military goods. So there was an apparent German agents came over to the U.S. and did this thing. And as an American citizen, allegedly, they would have told me about that in school, and I never learned about that.
I didn't learn about that either. How late does your history go back in your school system in the U.S. though? Like how far back did they teach you?
We cover generally they cover everything from Columbus forward. So 1492, allegedly, Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Hasn't that already been disproven too?
Well, of course, he never landed here. Amerigo Vespucci landed here, which is why it's called America. But the history they teach us is late 1400s forward.
Okay, now that being said, isn't it more likely that they're just changing the narratives or titles or whatever. Like some people are getting away just with copyright infringements, and other people are just being taught different things. They have the same lesson, but they're being told different names or different locations. I mean, it's to me that seems more likely than actual like time being shifted. Because if time was being shifted, then I think we would probably notice that a little bit more than just like cereal boxes changing their names and like you know what I mean? Like,
Dude,
like
I love that you're bringing up that concept.
okay, good.
And you're clearly not a Mandela effect person.
There's some
Which is,
things that I
no,
can't
it's fine.
explain. It's like if you were to say to me, I'm clearly not a flat earth person, there's some things I can't explain still. It's not that I'm a flat earth person. It's not that I'm a Mandela person. But there's some things, like one or two key points, that I just can't drop it. So I can't not I can't not. All I want to do is argue with it until someone can convince me. Because
Understand.
I can't argue with myself efficiently enough to convince myself either way.
Understand. No, totally. And I'm the same way with I can realize that we're not hurling through space and the curve doesn't exist because the technology of our cameras proves that we can see beyond the curve.
That's the one thing, as because I have a photography background, and that I haven't really like tried to look into this very deeply, but I understand the concept of it very quickly. And when someone said, "Wait, this thing is like this far away. We're on the ocean. We're on the beach. It's 3 feet off the ground. We zoom in. There it is. We zoom out. It's gone. What's going on there?" Because to me, that means that something's wrong. Either what we've been told is wrong, or there's some kind of weird technological anomaly that's been programmed into our technology that we're not supposed to know about, that's going to be discovered like 100 years from now.
Well, okay, and that may be a slight overthink on your part.
Probably.
If we're supposed to go X number of meters squared for every foot we go, yet my camera can see beyond that.
It makes no sense. I get it. I know it. That baffles me. But that's the only thing that I can't argue against without like complete confidence.
Okay, right. But in any story, in any whether it's a book, a movie, if there's a lie in that story, the whole thing's a lie.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, brother, really?
I don't think the whole thing's a lie. I think they're just trying to hide certain parts at different times.
Okay, so they're trying to hide the shape of the Earth, which, understandably, if you think you live on a spinning ball hurling through space and you came from monkeys, then they're trying to hide God. Trying to hide God.
I can see where that argument comes from, and I can also see where the idea of like maybe there's like because there's that whole Antarctic treaty, like you can't go past this line in the sand because I think there's probably a ton of more land and maybe all kinds of other stuff beyond that possibly, but I can't prove it. I can't prove it, and I can't change anybody else's perspective of what they believe. If they're willing to change it, fine, they can change it to whatever they want. But personally, I've kind of taken the middle of the road here with the whole shape of the Earth thing. I like what Tesla said about it being a realm.
Yeah, and a realm is a very accurate description, but so let's go back to Mandela effect. If you can take every instance of Mandela effect and make it into a copyright infringement, then you kind of have to explain, and I'm going to scroll up into the chat and see if I can find it. What's her face? Nailed it, and I'm not going to find it. Dang it. There are certain things that don't have anything to do with copyright that are Mandela affected.
Okay, those things are the ones that I would have to either be educated about or look deeper into because, for the most part, most of the Mandela effects that I come across are the ones that are uh, related to like some sort of history that was supposed to have happened that didn't, or the spelling of a word in a book, or the changing of a word in a book, or some people thinking that the lyrics of a song have been changed. It's never been like there's never been a Mandela effect that I've sort of seen that would be like, well, wait a minute. If that was true, then that would change a lot of other things in the whole entire world. It's usually the things that I can't explain are usually just like little things. You know, one or two letters misspelled here, or like the rainbow's supposed to have 7 colors instead of 6, or and everybody knows the rainbow has 7 colors, but it doesn't. It's never been anything like really. Like there's never been a Mandela effect as far as like genocide didn't happen in certain countries, or like you know what I mean?
Well, that genocide is a can of worms that I am not going to touch tonight, but I can give you a personal Mandela effect, and you can believe it or accept it or not.
No, these are the ones that matter, in my opinion. The personal ones are the ones that we should be hearing about, not these mass, like, okay, everybody's arguing about whether or not it's Bernstein or Berenstein. Like, either name is good for those bears. It doesn't matter because they're bears, so Berenstein makes sense too. Why does it matter what they were spelled like?
Got it. No, I get that. I get that. So the one that I was first thinking of was Ed McMahon and Publishers Clearinghouse. And the second one, Kev Baker chimed in, Black Tom Island. That's like a linchpin for people because that has nothing to do with copyright. It's an event that allegedly happened. Kev Baker that chimed in. Nobody remembers Island, who came from Sagittarius. That's everybody like who is from Orion for people knows Black Tom happened before 9/11. It's but everybody from Sagittarius has never ever heard of Black Tom Island. Who came from Sagittarius. And that's one you're going to have to look up. Everybody, I know you said you would. From Orion, but I will tell you my personal Mandela before 9/11. But everybody from Sagittarius has never ever heard of Black Tom Island. I lost and that's him. One you're going to have to look up, and I know you said you would. But all right, so I'll just tell the chat. Effect. Are you ready? Paulie, when you come back, let me know. I had been stung by wasps in my life. I lost him. Probably more than 5 times and less than 10. I'll just tell the chat. And Paulie, when you come back, let me know. Friday, I got stung by a wasp. I had been stung by wasps, and I had an allergic reaction. Probably first time in my entire lifetime. And I am 52 years old.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got sometimes my internet goes out and I can't control it. It's because I live in an apartment building, so.
No, that's all right. You're back. That's what matters.
Yep.
What part did you catch?
I heard most of what you were saying.
Did you catch Black Tom?
No, I didn't catch that. Okay, yeah. I actually pulled that up on Wikipedia too.
Okay, so Ed McMahon not working for Publishers Clearinghouse is a huge thing for people, which has nothing to do with copyright. And Black Tom terror attack has nothing to do with copyright. And I want you to process those. But the story I was telling, and I don't know if you heard it, but I'd been stung by wasps like more than 5 times and less than 10 in my entire life. Never had an allergic reaction. Friday, I got stung in my little pinky finger on my right hand, and my finger swelled up, my hand swelled up. I had to get the Benadryl. I was hot, it was itchy. I had never had a reaction until Friday, and I cannot get a doctor to explain how you don't have an allergic reaction, then all of a sudden you do.
Yeah, that's weird. I've heard that you can develop allergies, sort of whenever. Like, some people go through a lot of their lives without allergies to, like, pollen and stuff like that, but then at some point they develop allergies. I don't subscribe to that. I mean, some years I have allergies and some years I don't. The last person I ask is a doctor. I don't know. I don't go to doctors really that much anymore. Just because of the awareness of what they've been taught and what they've been told to just not question. So I don't usually do the doctor thing. But you know what's interesting about the Black Tom explosion is that it happened very close to uh, a year in an explosion that happened in Halifax in 1917,
Okay.
and it was a huge explosion. That there's I think Kev Baker was actually talking about it a while ago. There was that image of a person stained onto the glass. That's I was taught that explosion in school.
So you were taught about an explosion in Halifax, Nova Scotia, a year before there was a terror attack.
Yeah.
And were you ever taught? I mean, you were taught a lot of American history, I'm
Nope.
guessing.
Not really. We don't get taught a ton of American history in Canada unless we choose to go learn it.
Okay.
Um, but that being said, I can clearly remember not being taught anything about Black Tom explosion in my curriculum when I was a kid.
Fair enough. And we were taught a ton of corporate, factual, alleged American history in our schools, and never once does anyone I know ever taught about Black Tom.
Yeah, I think we might be onto something else here. Maybe I've often thought that the Mandela effect could be like a lot of people recognizing that the education system that they were brought up in, um, obviously, all this, everybody's separated. All the states are separated. All the countries are separated. Um, maybe somebody screwed up a spelling in one of the translations that went to like one state to the other, and instead of spelling it one way, they spelt it another way. Uh, that could be it too. But the one of the most interesting ones to me is the Bible one, because especially the one where they change. I think it's like wolf to lion or something.
Yeah, the lion shall, or the lamb will lay down with the lion, and now it's a wolf.
Right. I, so I always heard it was. I always heard it was the lion.
Right.
That's from and that's from going back to like I was never religious, but in my early child care days, the people around me were religious, and so I picked up on some things, and that was definitely a story that was told. For sure, it was a lion. I remember it, and I don't know why I remember it,
But
but
now it's the wolf, allegedly.
right. Okay, so the wolf and the lion, they kind of almost represent the same thing. They're just from different climates, in my
Not
opinion.
even well, okay, and I would say not even close
Well,
because,
I could argue that because the wolf is the top of the food chain in its climate, and the lion is the top of the food chain in its climate.
however, wolves run in packs and lions run in prides. And the difference to me is the lion pride is a family, and a wolf pack are individual wolves just trying to survive.
Actually, that's not true, Algo. Wolf packs are almost exactly like prides. That the way they travel, they make sure that their most vulnerable are in their appropriate position when they travel. They're actually they just exist in a bigger pride, in my opinion. But they're just as empathetic to one another in their pride or pack as lions are. Um, they always have the leader of the pack is always at the back to make sure everybody in front of them is set. Everybody in the pack is set. You got to look into that. It's really awesome.
Which appreciate, and I appreciate you correcting me on your interpretation. Female lions hunt for the pride, and in a wolf pack, the males hunt.
Yes, that's a huge difference too.
So if we're going to take the Bible, and the Bible for people who believe the Bible and who subscribe to it is the Word of God, and God said the lamb will lay with the lions, and then here we are in 2020, the lamb will lay with the wolves. That's kind of a big deal.
Okay, well, I need someone to explain to me why that's a big deal because I could just like I could just switch lion for wolf for somebody who's not been brought up religiously. For me, I want to know why it's a big deal because they're both kind of top of the food chain predators that live in sort of they have a lot of similarities.
I will tell you why it's a big deal. If you believe the Bible, the Word of God has changed.
But didn't it change before it was translated into English in the first place?
We can go to the Council of Nicaea and we can talk about how they edited the Bible, but if you believe the Bible and the Bible was a thing and it was the Word of God, and all of a sudden it changed, then either the Word of God is not authentic or the Mandela effect can change the Word of God.
Okay, then my next question would be who would want to change it and why only that word and not some other words that would probably have a more profound effect on the actual language in the book in the first place?
Well, they changed the wine skins into wine bottles in the Bible. Are you familiar with that one?
No.
Okay, so and it's in Job, and I don't have the exact passage because it's been a long time, but in the book of Job, he's talking about how you don't put new wine into old wineskins or they will burst. And in the Bible right now, it says wine bottles. And according to what I know about history, they didn't have glass bottles when the Bible was written and they used wineskins.
So, okay, wouldn't a logical explanation for changing that word just to be like, say, maybe to make it more relatable to a younger audience that wouldn't know what a wineskin was? They'd be like, ew, that's like gross. What's a wineskin? I don't want that.
No, I get that, but it's not about relating to a audience for your Bible. It's about the literal words on a page. I have a Bible from my grandmother that was written in 1934, and it says wine bottles now, and before it said wine skins.
Okay, hold on. I gotta ask you a question here.
Go ahead.
You're saying the word in the book that you have in your physical possession somehow changed from one word to the other?
That's the Mandela effect.
And that's wow.
Retrocausality, absolutely. 100%. I've got the book. It's 1934.
I believe you. I don't have one of those experiences, but that's like if I had one of those experiences, I'd be like, "Yep, something's going on."
So I appreciate the fact that your intelligent mind, rational, conversational, wants to say that this might just be a copyright issue. We may not really be going through some experiences, but I have an old book from 40 some years before I was born that says wine bottles.
Do you know anyone else with the same book?
I don't personally know them, but if you go and do a couple of YouTube searches, you will find hundreds of people who have Bibles, old Bibles, that say wine skins has changed to wine bottles.
That's pretty profound if that's real. I mean, like I still have a little bit of skepticism, but not because I don't believe you. It's just because like the human mind can play tricks on even like my own mind's played tricks on me 100 times.
Of course.
And if someone had a picture of like maybe two books that were from the same date, and one said one thing and one said the other, like that was. Do you know what I mean though? Like. Why do all these kind of like Mandela effects leave loopholes for it possibly being just like a figment of the imagination or people possibly remembering something different? There's no like nail in the coffin. I mean, apart from what you just told me for you, that's the nail in the coffin for you. If I had that, I wouldn't even be saying what I'm saying right now.
I will tell you, I personally think the reason that it leaves the loophole open is so we can question our connection to our creator God and our experience here. If you're constantly having to justify why Polly thinks what Polly thinks, then you're not going to be able to see what's going on at the same time, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that.
So Mandela effect takes me down an intellectual and emotional rabbit hole. Meanwhile, the society around me is headed towards a cashless society with a mandatory vaccine and a COVID card that says I can go buy food. I think that's kind of what's going on.
I wonder if like the Mandela effect will be like, no, it wasn't COVID-19, it was COVID 9/11.
Well, we may time will tell. We may have a Mandela effect on COVID. That's possible.
What? Yeah. What if we master the Mandela effect and we could somehow use it to our advantage? That'd be cool.
But would it? Because do you want that responsibility for the rest of humanity?
I wouldn't take it for the rest of humanity. I would just take it for like me and maybe like some people that I care about. Like
Okay.
whoever wants to trust me can come along. Okay, that's good. And then everybody else, like, this is what we're doing. Hopefully, we don't Mandela the rest of you out of here.
Right, which you very well could, and I think that's the. I'll tell you, when I first, how do I say this? I first saw a video about Mandela effect, and I was curious, and I looked into it, and I kept going, and I kept going, and I found the J. Chris channel, and it was kind of like home for me with Mandela, and the same thing for me with Flat Earth. I first saw one, and I was curious, and I'm like, oh, you guys are nuts, but I'm gonna ride this out a little bit, and then I saw one about the Federal Reserve, and there are certain things that we can tangibly say, okay, this happened, and now we have something to go on. And Mandela effect is not one of those. It's kind of a leap of faith. It's kind of a experiential existence, and it's kind of a what does it mean if I believe this?
Yeah, and also I kind of resonated with something I think that Kev might have said about like it being a very personal thing. Like there's very personal Mandelas. Um, so I don't know. Maybe some people are just more prone to noticing, and some people are just more prone to just like going along with subtle changes that really don't. I mean, they just don't notice them, or they don't feel like the change is that significant that they need to do anything about it.
Right. So if you're hyper vigilant, and I am one of those people that's hyper vigilant, I notice everything around me all the time. I know if you have 3 buttons hooked on your vest or two, and you had three before, I'm like, why don't you have the third button hooked? I'm that kind of person. And so I notice everything all the time. And I wonder if, for me, if the creator of this place didn't give some of us that so we can go to people like yourself and some people in the chat and say, hey, I noticed something I think might be important. I'm not sure why it's important. I'm not sure what it means, but I want you to take a look at it.
Also, this, um, if we okay, this is kind of a little bit sidetracking, but I promise I'll bring it back. If we are living in some sort of like air quotes simulation matrix type experience, in which case both round and flat Earth could exist simultaneously depending on the individual user's experience, right? So it wouldn't matter. What if like some sort of like maintenance programs that cleans up like you know 100-year-old memories that people aren't thinking about anymore because they're just they're irrelevant or redundant, And what if there's a program that goes through the whole matrix or like the universe, whatever you want to call it, and cleans just a bunch of shit that no one thinks about anymore. And sometimes words get changed in the Bible, and sometimes words get changed on cereal boxes and kids' books and other kinds of Mandela effects happen. That was another point that I wanted to just add to the arsenal of possibilities of why we have these things, the Mandela effect. I mean, I know it's there. There's enough people talking about it that it must be real, but I like arguing about and talking about this kind of stuff. So I like offering other possibilities.
No, of course. And if that is the case, then my question would be, how come I can remember before the cleaners came through? So they came through, they cleaned the reality. Most people didn't accept it, but yet here I am, and I'm saying, no, wait a minute. I saw what you did there, and I still remember the old way. How come that is something I experience?
I think that's like some kind of syntax error or something in the programming. Like it just skipped over you. And it was like, yeah, this one doesn't need to be cleaned. It's already awake or whatever. I don't know. Honestly, I don't have an answer. I'm just like grasping at straws for that question, to be honest with you. It's a good question, though.
Well, I mean, and I appreciate the fact that you can postulate a theory that's got a hole in it and say, okay, you found my hole. I don't know. No, that's fantastic. And somebody in the chat wants me to ask you about the JFK limo. So how many people were in John F. Kennedy's limousine when he was allegedly killed, because he wasn't really killed that day, and that's a whole nother stream. JFK did not get his head blown off out there. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, for one, that wasn't taught with any sort of focus in my education. So whatever I know about the JFK assassination is directly coming from videos that I can basically just sort of picture in my mind. And from what I remember, there's only 4 people in the car.
Okay. The driver, the security guy.
There's 2 people in the front and 2 people in the back.
Kennedy and his wife.
Yeah.
And yet a senator was allegedly hit by a bullet, and his wife was there with him, so there were 6 people.
Dude, there's so many holes in that whole story of everything that, like, Mandela wouldn't even hold a flame to that, how many holes there are in that story.
Okay, do you remember Tiananmen Square?
Yes.
Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Did the kid get run over by the tank, or did he not?
I never saw him get run over by the tank on TV, but I saw him standing in front of the tank. But there was never any footage that I saw at the time, because I was alive. I remember it very well. I remember when the Challenger blew up, and I told everybody in my class, like, yeah, that was supposed to happen. Anyways, Tiananmen Square, there was a guy standing in front of a tank. Yes. He moved
with shopping bags.
Yes, and he moved with the tank.
Left
moved,
and right.
Yeah, the tank tried to go around him. I remember it, but it never ever showed him getting run over ever.
So there are people in our reality that remember him getting killed.
Well, show me the video.
No, I mean, I agree, but there are people in our reality that remember him getting killed, and it was a whole big deal.
Yeah, I know. I know, and I mean, there's a whole plethora of events like that you could go back to and say, did that actually really happen, or was it the media's manipulation of what it wanted the public to see?
Agreed.
And then there's also there's also after effects. There's ripple effects. Okay, so people that were 5 years old when they saw, let's say, when they saw Rodney King get beat up in L.A., right? And now they're alive today, and they see George Floyd get beat up or get killed, murdered. To me, it's kind of the same sort of. It's a trigger finger. The media pulls this trigger, and people just like explode. They don't even question it. They just explode.
Well, yeah.
This could be some of the reasons why there are Mandela effects out there, is because the public has a happy trigger finger for drama, and wanting to fight for something because nobody knows really what to fight for, in my opinion. And so whenever they can latch on to a cause or whatever, they just grab it. They just grab it and fight with it because now they have an enemy. Now they have a purpose. They have a team they're on. They have an enemy they can fight. It's just like I don't know. To me, it's a bit of a redundancy. It's a programming that should be erased, in my opinion.
Agreed. But who is in charge of putting that programming out there? And if we don't accept the program, then it is negated, right?
Well, there's, in my opinion, two different kinds of programming, right? Like, there's the programming that exists, like inherently, like even before we were here. There's programming. There's how nature works. If the way I believe things, that the creator or God, however you want to call him, he's the programmer, the architect. He designed the whole infrastructure, the everything. Why everything has a frequency? That's because of him. It's why it says the word of God. He spoke before anything happened. It's hit the vibration. That's what I pick up on there. Is the vibration of the sound of his voice it was just I guess so powerful that it could create everything that we perceive as reality, like everything in nature, all the animals, the trees, the sky, the stars, everything. So Mandela effects could be a consequence of when you like a inadvertent echo from that word, I guess you could say. It's very metaphorical. I get it's very vague, but that's kind of how I see it. They could be just like echoes that are bouncing off walls that were meant to be taken down before the sound got there.
Well, for sure. And you found a moment in time where you thought, let's have a Mandela effect discussion. It was important enough to you to live stream. And you're relatively new to streaming. I mean, you're like a superhero now because the past 10 days you've been everywhere. But you stepped out and you said, okay, there's this thing I think is important and I want to talk about this and I want to share some things I think about it. So as I'm sitting here discussing this with you, I'm really curious. Do you think the Mandela effect is an actual phenomenon, or do you believe that it's a mind virus that some of us who think we're Mandela affected have acquired?
I don't think it's a virus, and I don't think it's a programmable phenomenon. Like, I don't think it's meant to be a part of the whole, whatever you want to call it, the matrix, the universe, whatever, wherever we live, the reality. I don't think it's meant to be there. I think it is probably some kind of inadvertent side effect of either the deconsciousness of the human race, or it could have something to do with what maybe CERN is doing. That stuff is usually way over my head. I don't really know what's going on as far as quantum physics and all that kind of stuff. Maybe creating Mandelas. But if we do live in a simulation, it would seem likely to me that it could be just Mandelas could be just a result of maybe we need an upgrade of our maintenance programs to come in here and scrub people of things that we don't need anymore, like competition and competition for resources. I mean, I don't mean competition in the standpoint of art, but competition for resources, land, things that we need to stay alive, water, air. We don't need to compete for those. There's plenty of those here. We're not running out. Don't worry. No need to fight about that.
Have you experienced something that you would call a Mandela effect?
Personally, I don't think so. No, not that I can think of off the top of my head. If I do think of one later on, I'm definitely I'll send it to you somehow. But off the top of my head, I can't really know. I mean, most of the Mandelas that I hear about, I always pick it's usually a pretty trivial thing. Like, it's usually something from the 80s, and it's usually and I just pick what I remember, and I don't really do much other research beyond that because I feel like I have a good memory.
Yeah, and I'm sure you do. So, how would you spell Chick-fil-A?
Well, I don't even know what that is, so
You don't have Chick-fil-A in Canada.
no, I don't think so.
Okay, it's an American company.
Yeah.
So, how would you spell Berenstain Bears?
Well, uh, to be honest with you, I don't know how that one was originally spelled when I was a kid, but guessing, I would say it would make more sense to spell it Bear because it was a family made of bears. So that's like, and it's a kid's book. So that's what I would guess. That's how it was probably spelt. But if it wasn't spelt like that somewhere else in the world, that's a possibility.
Stein or Stean?
Oh, I thought the issue was like Bere
No, it's
or
not.
Bear.
No, it's not the bear part. We know it's Bear. It's Steen or Stein. Berenstein Bears or Berenstein Bears?
Oh yeah, that's probably just copyright. That's got to be copyright. I bet you there's both. I'm like no joke. I'll bet you that one specifically. I'll bet you there's both books out there.
And are you pretty sure that Ed McMahon gave away big checks for Publishers Clearinghouse?
Oh, he used to do that all the time. Yeah, I remember seeing him on TV.
Yeah, and if you look it up, he never did that.
Well, just because he saw it on TV, man, it doesn't mean it actually happened, right?
Agreed.
So is that a Mandela effect, or was that the TV lying to you? Just because you
That's a good.
remember it on TV, it doesn't mean it happened, right?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is. Actually, I'm gonna have to look back on a lot of stuff now that I've asked that question. Jeez.
I'm glad you asked that question because so so here's what it comes down to for me. Team Humanity is having a hard time right now. And we're not completely losing, but we're struggling. And Team Corporation and Team Fascism is really, really striving. And so it's really, to me, it's like if we are in this Mandela effect and it causes Team Humanity to suffer more, then we have to address that, correct it, and move forward. Because I want Team Humanity to win, and it doesn't seem like we're on that trajectory.
I agree. I don't know about the trajectory part because I'm not really looking that far ahead yet at this point. I mean, I know there is a point where I'm going to have to start looking a little bit further ahead, but at this point, what I think it's what's important to realize here is that whether or not the Mandela effect is real or not to whoever's listening, or whether they've had personal experiences or they just know somebody, it doesn't really matter. The point is that as long as you're in an environment where you can talk about this kind of stuff, and instead of being bombarded with what's being constantly thrown at you from multiple angles of just constant negativity and fear porn and be scared of this, make sure you do that so you don't affect your neighbor or whatever you want to call it. It's good to like get outside the box and talk about stuff and like stuff that doesn't have anything to do with what's going on right now. It just like have an open conversation with an open mind, and instead of arguing about whether COVID's real or not, or where you should wear a mask, or whether or not there's global warming or Greta or whatever. Just talk about something that's everybody can kind of relate to, but it's not like threatening to anybody if you take one side or the other. It's just a mental. It's almost like keeping your brain exercised, in my opinion. It's like a gym. It's like a gym for your brain. Like talk about stuff that's not on the media. Talk about other stuff. Don't just, hey, how's the sports team? How's the weather? Talk about something outside your box. You have to do it, and talk about it with people that think the same way as you too, right? I think
Yeah.
that's why we're talking.
Well, yeah, and I love that about you because that makes you so Canadian in a good way. No, in a good way.
There is no
You,
bad Canadian, eh?
I will tell you that's such a kind, on the fence, not gonna take a side message, and I appreciate that and I understand that, because if we're all on Team Humanity, then we shouldn't be fighting each other. But the thing I would say is there are people that pretend to be on Team Humanity who are not, and they're seriously causing our demise right now. They're destroying our infrastructure. They're destroying our credit system. They're destroying the dollar, which is why gold is going up, because the dollar is falling. And the dollar is the lifeblood of the economy for Americans, and not only Americans, but every Western civilization. And so as we keep going forward and we see people doing the things they're doing, then taken aside, I think, is going to have to be a paramount feature of if the good Team Humanity survives, or if the frickin' robots who are NPCs in this place survive. And you're not an NPC. You're clearly an intelligent man who has something to say, and that's why I talk to you and why I appreciate you being here. But when it comes down to, can you feed your family? Can you take care of something? The Mandela effect is not going to be that important, but it may be something that tells you how you're going to move forward during all this nonsense.
What I'm worried about is the Mandela effect may have been around a lot longer than we know, and it may have already infiltrated a lot of our past history, and it may have actually influenced the way that we actually view the Mandela effect as it presents itself today. That's what I'm worried about. And if the Mandela effect is real, and if the Mandela effect is indeed a tool that they have control over, which I'm still skeptical about that, but if it indeed it is, then if we don't realize it now, by the time they figure out how to really use it, it won't matter whether we realize it or not, because they'll just go back and change it.
Oh, got it. That's an interesting point. And I wonder if, as we try to navigate the history we've been taught, in relationship to the history we can learn, irrespective of what we were taught, is it possible that Mandela effect is just kind of a thing of this reality, that when they change stuff, the reality doesn't care. It only affects the people who are here.
Yeah. I mean, why would the reality care? The reality is not going to think about, yeah, you're totally right. That could be another, I had never even thought about it from that angle. Like, that's going to send me down another hole. I'm going to be up for a while thinking about that one. Yeah, I mean, when you get into the whole, like, why would somebody come back? Because a lot of people say, okay, well, why would somebody come back in time or whatever to change something in a book that's just one word? And I'm like, well, what if they're just practicing? What if they just start small? Like, what if they're just what if they just come back to our time to start small, because we're not going to notice it, and all we're going to do is talk about how, like, it's Captain Crunch with an A or Captain Crunch with a U or whatever, and we're not going to really notice it. When really 100 years from now, they're doing experiments on going back in time to try to Mandela effect some kind of positive outcome that they want to achieve wherever they're coming from in the future. So I'm totally open to that idea that the Mandela effect might be sort of like just practice runs, you know, like kind of like how I was saying on KBS about, like, the footprints next to the dinosaur footprints. Like, what if they just really screwed up and sent someone back there and they're like, well, sorry, dude. Hopefully we find your bones in like 1,000,000 years, or your axe that you left in the mountain or whatever. They're like, oops, okay, maybe we should start off a little bit, you know, maybe we should start to try to change words in books, or, like, you know, cartoon characters or something, and see if that works.
Right. So we have bridged timelines and Mandela effect and the nature of reality all in the conversation. The question that for me then becomes, which one does an individual pick to be able to live out their life productively, helping others, and still stay sane within this new COVID reality.
My personal take on that is that as long as you're helping others, even if it's just in the smallest way, and by the smallest way I mean like something as simple as a smile. Of course, if you're wearing a mask, you can't see a smile, so I would recommend if you're going to smile that you should not wear a mask because no one can. I mean, some people can see you're smiling through your eyes, yeah, and some people are better at smiling through their eyes than others. But at the end of the day, a smile is not meant to be masked. So if you're going to smile, that's the least you can do, in my opinion. I actually have a comic book character that I'm working on developing. His name is Minimum Man, and his slogan is, "Hey, it's the least I could do." And he always just does the very bare minimum. He doesn't ever do anything like, he just gives like stupid advice after it's already apparent kind of stuff. Uh,
Slacker man.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's the least he could do. You're welcome.
Love it. No, I love that. Are you gonna produce that comic and put it on your channel and put it on your website?
Probably not. What I'll do is I'll probably try to get the IP rights for it. Like, I'll do it all legal and then I'll just sell the idea to someone else. I don't know.
Got it.
Yeah.
No, it's a cool idea. So in the base analysis, everybody in the chat, and I love you guys, and we're gonna shout the chat real quick. I have to click the thing and
I have to admit I'm not in the chat because every time I open the
whatever.
YouTube stream, it starts feeding back, and I haven't figured out how to deal with that in an
Just
effective manner.
mute the YouTube, and that will do it.
I know, but see, the thing is that I've got the recording, the stream recording software is up and running, and it's right over top of the mute button, so I can't.
Oh, got it. So Brenda Mitchell, Cackles McCackles, Dirk, Jeffrey, Kristen Gallo, Momi, Moonbeam, Moots. Nice to meet you, Moots. You're new. Sapphire S, you're new. Pia, Chappelle, Vanessa G, Xavier Morales, Miralus. Yeah, some new people here, which is cool. And I appreciate you all being here. We're just sitting here having a talk. But I would say that in the end analysis, if it's good for humanity and it's good for us, then I am on side of it. And when I see Mandela effect separate people, divide them in their thinking, divide them in their awareness of what's going on here, then I am questioning and I am suspect, and I don't take it at face value. I'm really curious what the fuck kind of a thing could make a Mandela effect turn wine skins into wine bottles. What could make the Black Tom be the most detrimental terrorist attack on U.S. soil that we never had? And all of a sudden we have 9/11, and it's not good for humans in the whole. So then I have to go and take a look at it and point at it and poke at it. And that's why that's why I'm so glad you wanted to talk about Mandela.
Well, yeah, no, I'm glad you wanted to talk about it too because I just came across some information recently that you might be fascinated with too. Apparently, I haven't vetted this yet, so this is just, I guess, fourth or third party information. That there are pictures of infrastructure in the U.S. where there are horse-drawn carriages, but the carriages are drawn on like streetcar tracks.
Yes.
So
Yeah, brother, go to John Levi's channel.
yeah, like so basically that what that's saying to me is like, okay, those streetcar tracks were there and they just like were like, okay, what can we use these for?
They co-opted them. Yeah, absolutely. One of the mods, Shappy or what's her face or Pia, go find John Levi's channel and link it in this chat, please, because the history that we were taught sure seems to be completely incorrect from the history humans have experienced. Polly, did I lose you?
Still there. No, I'm still here. I'm just
Yeah. So you got these streetcar tracks that just so happen to fit the tire tracks of the horse carriage, and they existed in San Francisco, which is the most further west place from Manifest Destiny in the United States, and it seemed to be happening before the Civil War. It's very suspect.
yeah. So what is that? Like, is that a Mandela effect, or is that just a misrepresentation of history? Like, it's hard to say. Some of the Mandela effects, I think, are actually like actual purposeful lies that they've tried to, like, switch people to thinking that, one thing happened over another, like especially like historical events, that those kind of Mandela effects, especially when it comes to, like, what history was taught to me and what history is being taught to, like, say somebody like my 14-year-old kid, it doesn't, some of the things don't match. And also, some of the things I've learned about the history that I was taught turned out to be, complete BS as well.
Right.
An example would be like the Vietnam War, how that started, that kind of stuff.
Gulf of Tonkin never happened.
Exactly. Like, yeah, and you know what? Like, it's really synchronistic too, because I was a huge Doors fan too, and then I later found out that Jim Morrison's dad was the admiral on the ship that was in, like, I mean, I had to destroy my heroes when I learned
Right.
about this kind of stuff, which was, it was hard for me to do. I'm not going to deny it. It was really hard for me to destroy my heroes when I
Right.
learned
Well,
about this
yeah,
kind
and
of
when you
stuff.
realize that
Which was
the
it
United
was
States was
hard for
lied
me to
into war in 1967 with the Gulf of Tonkin, and we know we were lied into war in 2011, yet the military industrial complex had no problem killing 1.5 million Iraqis over something that wasn't true.
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of heart-wrenching.
It's not just heart wrenching. It's terrifying. Like,
Yeah, it is.
what
Horrific.
are we to these people? Like, we're
Horrific.
yeah. It's really it's astounding. I used to think Jim Morrison was, a poet and kind of like a Renaissance kind of figure. I looked up to him as a teenager. He basically gave me the permission to express myself the way I wanted to. Uh, as a role model. I had a bunch of role models like Jim Morrison, and when I learned all about, like, Tavistock and, like, how history's been manipulated and all the ties to, like, like Laurel Canyon and all that stuff, I like I mean, as a Canadian, Neil Young
Right.
is like, everybody wishes Neil Young was their father practically
Yeah.
as a musician in Canada. And once I learned about Tavistock, and then, like, his dad was a prominent author, and I actually was forced to read some of his dad's books in school. And I didn't put the two and two together until I was older, and now it's just kind of like, I don't want to say ruined all that music for me, but it's definitely opened my eyes to the power of music, for sure, how it can manipulate people, and like the frequencies involved, and, like, I don't know, man. Maybe some, because I've heard some pretty crappy music coming out lately. Maybe that music and the auto tune and all that kind of junk is causing Mandela effects with the dissonant frequencies that it creates. Like, I just want to, like, scratch on a chalkboard to drown it out.
So it's definitely a question. If I said Mandela effect, you'd definitely say possible.
Oh, for sure. I'm not going to say it's outright no, no way in hell, no, because
Okay.
there's too many people with personal experiences like yourself that like, I've heard other personal experiences. So I can't really argue with a personal experience because I'm not that person. But
Right.
those to me are more valid than, something that you read online, or something that you watch on YouTube, or something you hear on a radio, or, you know what I mean? Like, something you read in the paper. It, it, it doesn't, a lot of them can be explained to me, but there's a few, kind of like I mean, I'm in the same boat with the flat earth thing. There's most of the points I can argue all day long, but there's a few of them I can't. So at the end of the day, if there's if there's some I can argue and some I can't, then basically we should just exist anyways and not worry about it. Like
Well, agreed. No, I agree. But for me, when I find those points that I can't argue and that I am stumped by, then I have to, my rational mind has to say, okay, I can't figure this out. This other thing makes more sense. I must believe this other thing because it makes more sense.
so are you the type that tends to like always divide things until you have one of two choices?
To a degree, yes. Yeah, of course. So I can look at a situation and I can say what's going on, and there's like all these factors, and then I can delve it down into
Black
what
and
I
white.
can what I can prove and what I can imagine. And if I can prove with a camera that I can't find the curve because my lens goes far enough, then that tells me the place does not have a curve.
Right. But the one thing that I could argue with that one place where you're shooting it, like even if it's over the ocean, what if there's places on even a round surface that are flat, and that's why you can see that distance only on that. Like there needs to be more tests done is what I'm saying on that whole thing, because the long distance photography over the ocean, that's the only thing I can't argue with. Like when I first saw it I was like, yep, that's it. Either the earth is way bigger or it's flat.
Right.
There's no there's I've been doing photography since I was 14 years old.
Yeah, one or the other.
Yep. And but now, the whole realm possibility is there. It's unlikely because there's freaking like physical optics that can film it. But the possibility of there being flat spots in the ocean, not out of the question. And especially if the Earth is way bigger, than they tell us. Like if it's way bigger, then maybe the curvature, the math that they gave us is wrong. That could be. I mean, they've lied to us about everything else. Then why wouldn't they lie about that?
Well, which is true, but if it's way bigger than they told us, then the cosmology of the 365 days per year doesn't add up.
Which is why we need a leap year.
Well, no, which is why we can't trust anything outside of our personal experience.
Yes, that's kind of exactly what I was saying. Like they basically they they screwed up the actual real time, whatever you want to call it, the sky. Crow calls it the sky clock.
Yeah, they
I
fucked up the sky clock.
I like that term because it actually measures things a lot more accurately, and you don't need a leap year in the sky clock, which is.
Dude, if you have a full moon every 28 days,
Oh, by the way, it's full moon tonight. Happy full moon.
and if you have a full moon every 28 days, then there is no need for a leap year because every 28 days is your calendar day. They bastardized it for corporate commercial reasons, but if the full moon comes every 28 days, that is a definite thing in this reality that we can say is true.
Yes, and you know what's also true about that is the whole. Uh, there's this thing where they say we know that our propaganda has been successful when everything the
Everybody.
general public knows is false. So our calendar is based around the sun. They started this hundreds of years ago, people. We're supposed to be basing our calendar around the moon, actually. So that's where they start. They said, you know what? Let's start with calendar first. Let's mess with time. And then let's throw in a leap year so it makes sense. And then let's throw in some math, and let's throw in some other cool theoretical physics that's based on the said math that we haven't proven yet. And we'll just teach everybody all this stuff. When really, it's the moon we should be looking at, and what constellation the moon is in at the time that it's full can also give you a lot of information for like not just like your own self, but like when to plant stuff, when to do things, when to
Of
take
course.
risks, when to not take risks, when to tell somebody that they're doing something wrong. You can use it for all of these kind of things.
No, you're right. And so when you calculate that, resonance of what they're trying to perpetuate onto the people, and you put that next to the flat Earth or the Mandela effect, the to me the answers are very simple. They are full of shit, and anything they tell me is opposite of the real reality.
I agree. They are probably full of shit, but you know what? They're using when they tell you the shit. They're using the timing of it. Like I in my opinion, this is just my opinion. It's totally theoretical. The people that are in power, they know stuff about astrology that I like to think I'm sort of learning about or aware of almost even. Um, they're going to use this full moon. It's on a Monday. A lot of full moons happen on Monday. That's really weird because it's called Monday and it's moon.
Moon Day.
Exactly. It's lunacy. I know. Um, so they're going to use the fact that this full moon is in. A lot of people are going to say this full moon's in Aquarius. If you actually look in the sky, it's not in Aquarius. You got to look at the actual constellations. It's actually in Capricorn. Capricorn's a little bit bigger than Aquarius. So the full moon is actually in Capricorn if you look at it in the sky right now. And Capricorn's always sort of associated with long-term sort of plans. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next week on the media you're going to hear about long-term lockdowns, long-term sort of bylaws, long-term changes to your daily life that you're going to have to deal with due to COVID. They're all going to be talking about these long-term effects.
For sure. Yeah.
So just
Absolutely.
keep an eye on that. It's only, I think, what is it, Monday today? Yeah, it's only Monday today. Keep an eye on that. And you know what? Hit me up if I'm wrong. Hit me up and let me know I'm wrong.
Call him out, people. Call him out.
Yeah.
Anybody in the chat? No, and thank you guys in the chat for being here with us. Paulie and I are having to me, an interesting conversation.
Yeah, this one's
And
good.
thank you guys for being here. My gut tells me that September into October is going to be really not good for Team Humanity, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping we can vibe higher, but I see things coming to us that not going to be so good. And for you guys here who are listening, prepare accordingly, act accordingly.
I would also add to whoever's listening that just because things aren't looking good, okay, at least we know what's coming. So put your hands up, put your arms up over your head, because we're gonna get pummeled. And what we need to do is I guess try to tire them out. And while we're getting pummeled, we're still building these underground communities and these digital places where people can go, for like solace. Like we just keep building these places bigger, and when the time comes, once they get big enough, I think we might have, we might be able to put up a fight at that point.
Yeah, and maybe even not a fight, but it's an energetic spiritual thing to me. So the physical confrontation is the aftermath of the spiritual engagement. And if we are willing to accept the power that we have as people, we won't have to get there. But I doubt that we can do that. I think most people right now, listening or otherwise, are just kind of mind fucked by what's going on. And we're not clear enough to understand that it's just us. We are just people. They are just people too, and they're making stupid choices against humanity, and we're making smart choices for humanity. So I hope that as we go through this nonsense, that we can get on that page to where we don't actually have to have a fight.
Yeah, fighting is, but you know what? Fighting takes place in nature. There is a use for fighting. There are things worth fighting for, in my opinion, and it happens. It happens in plant life quite frequently. Plants will fight with each other. The strongest plant wins, but Usually, the strongest plant wins because the benefit of that plant winning is beneficial to the whole entire ecosystem in the long run. So, it, I guess what I'm saying is if you lose a fight, it doesn't mean that you've lost. You might have just lost that fight. Like,
Well, yeah, then fuck it. Let's just kill him. Let's just get it over with. Get Bill Gates, line him up, and get done with him.
I honestly don't know why everybody loves Bill Gates so much. He's not even a doctor. Like, yeah, okay, I could see why people say, "Oh, he's an intelligent man. He did this, he did that," because that's what they were programmed to believe that he did. I've dug into Bill Gates. Um, I don't really think he gives a crap about anybody. To be
No,
honest with you, he's been kicked out of countries left, right, and center for killing people. He should be thrown in jail for murder, in my opinion. And just because of the fact that he's such
pushing all
a
this.
he's put in the same sort of spotlight as like somebody like an Elon Musk, and people think, oh well, we've got to listen to this guy because that's how he got so successful because he's so intelligent. And people just don't realize, no, he was fucking placed there. Sorry.
Or or Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean they're all actors, okay? Like everybody that you've
Yeah,
ever seen in politics and movies, everywhere, they're all actors. It's been going on for hundreds of years, people. Like
for sure. Yeah.
all of these people are just actors. You can still like them. I'm not saying you can't like your actors and your entertainment, whatever, but just realize where it comes from. It's been going on for like hundreds of years, millennia even.
Right. And the fact that they have influence over an individual's life, that's the trick for me. That's the thing where I have to push back and say, okay, wait a minute. These people can say whatever they want to say, but you, as a sovereign human, gifted by God into this realm, you have to make your own choice. You have to ignore them to the nth degree, and you have to live your life as best you can.
You have to definitely you have to take your own choices, not just make them.
Yeah, it's up to you, buddy.
Yeah, some people want their choices made for them. I understand that. A lot of times I don't want to decide what's for dinner. I just want someone to give me dinner. Like I'm just hungry. I don't care. I get it. But like if you don't take your own choices when it's important, then they're just going to take your choice for you and put a mask on your face basically.
Yeah, right. And if you're willing to do that, and I will tell you, I went over to the beer store in between Kev Baker streaming and you and I streaming, and all the signs say you have to put a mask on to go into the store. And so I put on my mask and I walked into the beer store, and this geeky guy who was like 6'2", 120 pounds, glasses, wearing a plaid shirt with a pocket protector. He walked in there with no mask like it was nothing. And so I took my mask off and I said, yes, I get it. You have the balls to do this, and you're like a nobody. So if I'm going to stand for humanity, then I have to say no mask.
Yeah, that's funny because I went to the beer store at a similar time that you did, and somebody actually, one of the customers asked me where my mask was, and I said, "You're wearing it, bud."
Oh, amen. Amen, Polly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting used to these non-masker, like the people that give you the evils underneath the mask. It's like, you know what? You probably wouldn't say half the shit you're saying to me if you took that mask off.
Right.
It's almost like they're hiding behind it now. It's like
And they're
it's an excuse to criticize people that don't want to wear a mask.
Yes, and they're kind of like proud to wear it like a Boy Scout puts on his badge. He's like, I earned it.
Almost, yeah, almost. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, and it's crazy at the same time.
It's totally crazy because we all are genetically related to people like these, and I have a like that's the most crazy thing to me is why I can be genetically related to people that are that easily just told to, you know what, you're gonna need to go out and buy like 1,000,000 rolls of toilet paper right now. Do it. And I'm just looking at them like, what? You can't even. I mean, toilet paper is not even the best fire starter, for God's sakes. Like, you can't eat it. All you can do is wipe your ass with it. How useful is toilet paper when stuff really goes down? Trust me, toilet paper is going to be the least of your worries.
Right.
Yet it was sold out for months.
Well, yeah, because of the mind virus. But I will tell you, patriotic constitutionalist who loves all races said early on in this video, Paulie has ran into a serious logical fallacy. I have Berenstain Bears books from when I was a child, had them stored in a box. They're near Berenstain. He is 100% wrong.
Maybe the books are 100% wrong, but whatever. We could both be wrong. You know what? I'm okay with being wrong.
Well, and I'll tell you, as we navigate this place, if it, let's say, for lack of argument,
That's like saying that's like okay, but okay, this is like saying it's like saying, well, if I think I'm gonna lose while I'm scratching this scratchy lottery ticket, and then I lose, okay, I lose, but then like a year later, it's gonna say that I win.
I don't think it's the same thing, but let's say, for lack of better argument, this place has changed, and you didn't notice, and so the Berenstain Bears was truly a thing, and now it's Berenstain Bears, and that's all that you know. It doesn't make you wrong. It just means that you didn't encompass the entire facility of information.
Yes,
right?
totally,
Right?
totally. But here's the thing. What like don't if that was real, and if it was something that we should be paying attention to, wouldn't we have noticed it in something more significant than children's books?
Unless you're not on the trajectory of creator wanting you to know that.
But that's what I'm saying. What if the creator is like part of the simulation? It's the architect of the simulation. The same thing
Of
as
course.
yeah.
Of
So
course.
what if
Yeah.
what if he just ran a program that just randomly went through and just like cleared out a whole bunch of like useless stuff that was in human consciousness, and Mandela effects happened to be a side effect of that?
Sure, but what if you were not one of those people that needed to be cleared and all the rest of us were? That's a place where you can't understand from our perspective that we saw that cleared out, right?
I've never had something change. Yeah, no, you're right. I understand that.
Right?
I will
So
never be
you're,
able to relate to that. And you know what? I can respect that because that's just something I won't ever be able to relate to. Hopefully it happens to me one day.
well, maybe, maybe not, because if you have a Mandela effect happen to you, then you have to jump on the Mandela effect train.
Yeah, but it's not like I don't relate to some of the Mandela effects that are out there. Like there are some that are like for me, it's like I don't know enough about the subject that it could be either or.
Right.
So I'm not,
Because
and it's a very, from what I've gathered, it's a very personal thing as well. Some people are going to notice it, obviously, and some people aren't going to notice it.
dude, I'll tell you, it is so world jarring that when you think you knew something and you have a good memory and you remembered it and all of a sudden it's different, it is so fucking jarring that you're like, what the hell is going on?
I know that. See, here's how I know that. Okay, I had let's just call it an altercation, and I was really, really intoxicated. I'm not proud of this, but I was given disclosure when I went to court. Apparently, the way I remembered what happened and what I saw on the video of me doing what I did were completely different. Now, I'm not saying that has anything to do with Mandela, but what I'm saying is that I know what it's like to go back to something that you thought was one way and then it turns out to be another. I do know what that's like because watching that video of drunk Polly story, exactly. Watching that video changed my life forever.
Right. You had no idea you act the way you acted.
Exactly. Not
Right.
one single iota. And so that's how easy it is for the human mind to be molded.
And tricked
Yeah.
and manipulated and cajoled and everything. So when we try to make sense of this Mandela effect navigation through this reality, it is super possible that none of us have the first fucking clue what is going on. And we don't remember it the way we thought we remembered it. And media told us it was a thing when we didn't even know that. So, amen. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
and this is why I actually enjoy talking to people that are really into Mandelas and like, other kinds of cool stuff that like I not necessarily subscribe to 100%, but like I really dig talking about and I because I think I have good questions for these people. The more people I talk about that are really into Mandela effect that I can ask questions, it means the more I'm learning personally, so it is a bit of a selfish thing, but at the same time, I think people benefit from uh, not I don't want to say I'm a skeptic necessarily because I don't like being like chucked into the skeptic box, but I like to question like even like the whole truth movement. One of their slogans is question everything, and so I'm even going to question the truth.
Of course. And don't be a chicken shit. Don't be a chicken shit. If you have something to declare, declare it. You don't have to be bashful or I'm not going to say, just if you got something, do it.
Yeah. Well, the bashfulness is being stripped away almost symbolically at the same rate my balcony is being reconstructed as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty fantastic.
Well, I will tell you, I'm glad that you came here to talk with me about the copyright difference that may cause every Mandela effect. But if you look into Black Tom, I think you might find something a little bit different.
I've got it opened up right now. So
Yeah,
I will be looking into that. They wouldn't teach that. I don't think they would teach that in Canadian, even Canadian American history. They
they
probably
didn't.
wouldn't teach that. They only teach
They,
like Christopher Columbus and Civil War and George Washington and Lincoln. Yeah, Abe. What was his name? Abraham. Yeah,
Abraham Lincoln, but
that's
yeah,
weird
they
that his
didn't.
name's Abraham, isn't it?
It's not weird. It's totally prophetic because he was a sellout from the highest order, but they did not teach Black Tom to American citizens. They did not teach Black Tom to American children
It seems
at
like
all.
from what I've read so far, it seems like a similar kind of explosion to what happened in Halifax that Kev was talking about the other day. That
It
Halifax
probably
explosion,
was.
and
Yeah, probably was.
it happened like a year later, almost exactly a year later.
So they co-opted the story, just like they did most mass shootings and most nonsensical bullshit, to frighten the people and cause the people to give up their personal power. And Paulie, brother, you have not given up 1 inch of your personal power, and I love that about you.
Yeah, well, the power I have, keep it in my pocket.
Yeah, and you're digging in, and you're willing to fight for it, and I love that about you.
Oh, I'll fight for what I believe is right, and I believe that people should have a choice, and the choice is more right than the actual choice itself.
Well, it is because the outcome of the choice is that's in God's hands, for lack of a better word. You make the choice, the thing plays out. You make the choice, the thing plays out, and you're willing to own it and make that choice. And dude, love you for that.
And
Uh,
whatever you don't have the courage to make the choice of at the time, the best advice for that I say would be to just not make a choice at all, and it will sort itself out because there is a higher power, and you know what? He might let you suffer, uh, but there's everybody has their threshold, and he knows exactly what you're capable of suffering through, and you're suffering for a reason.
I would tell you, he never lets you suffer. He will let you experience suffering in the way that you perceive it.
Oh,
But
he lets me suffer. Trust me.
no, no, no,
No, he knows I need it. He knows I need it.
dude.
I actually was watching. What's his name? Last name is Cho. I think it's David Cho on Joe Rogan today,
All
and
right.
he's like a really famous graffiti artist. And he said that comfort was the killer of creativity, And as soon as he said that, I like almost burst out into tears because it explains so much uncomfortableness that I actually, when you look back on it, I put myself in that position on purpose subconsciously so that I would be able to create what I created in that time.
Okay, I get that. And I think that's partially true, but I think that's 100% bullshit because you were not designed for this life to suffer. If you suffer, your mental disposition in relationship to this reality is what causes you to suffer.
Well, here's where I might have to disagree with you as a friend, and I will say that
Hey, do it.
the whole concept of alchemy and being able to transmute something is being able to take that sort of turmoil or negative energy, whatever you want to call it, and transmute it into some kind of art that gives other people the exact opposite effect, which would be, I guess, joy, for lack of a better word. And,
Okay.
and so that to an alchemist, that turmoil, that suffering is actually a valuable tool.
No, I get that, but that self-identification of suffering is egomaniacal bullshit. Because if you have food, if you have a place to live, if you have a place to shower, you're not suffering. You may emotionally be suffering, but in reality world, you're not suffering. You're just a whiny little, oh God, my life sucks. No, you're not suffering.
I don't.
And I don't mean that about you personally. I mean that about people who say that because
What I would like to point out is that I think a lot of people in the Western world have an idea of suffering in their head, and I'm included. I'm so guilty of this as well because I was pretty much like raised in the Western world as well. We have no idea in the Western world what real suffering is. I mean,
right.
the only suffering that we experience is mostly mental. I mean, the pharmaceutical industries have made up probably about 15 different drugs just based on this principle alone, that there's so much mental suffering and so much mental disability, and there's all these mental traumas and mental conditions that people have that the pharmaceuticals industry, in all honesty, they made them up for one, because that's how they run. They make up illness, and then they provide the drug for it, and then they make the people addicted to that drug, and then they have money forever. That's how it works. Uh, Not going to sugarcoat that part. I mean, if you don't know that about the pharmaceutical industry, you should probably look into it because that's how it works. Uh, Other than that, um, most of the suffering that most people incur in the Western world is self-inflicted.
Right.
I hate to say it, but they're first world problems most of the time too.
Well, yeah, so you can see why I have zero empathy for that nonsense. I mean, please, suck it up. Get back into being on Team Humanity. Quit bitching about your shit, and let's just go.
I get it, man, because spreading turmoil is not why you're. That's not why you're in that turmoil. Like
No.
if you're in that turmoil, it's not so that you can spread it to other people. It's because you were selected to learn something from that turmoil and then help other people get out of it.
And even if you don't learn, then pay it forward and fuck off. I mean, seriously. And I'm kind of getting crass there because it pisses me off that we feel so entitled that we feel sorry for ourselves and we're sad and it sucks and fuck off.
Yeah.
Everybody dies.
Sorry, dude. That's a quote for the ages. Pay it forward and fuck off. That's amazing.
Yeah. Pay it forward and fuck off.
I love it.
Everybody dies. Nobody gets out of here alive. Everybody's life is hard. Your life is hard. My life is hard. What's her face has a hard life. Pia has a hard life. Jeff Ray has a hard life. Brenda Mitchell, hard life. Sage Universe, hard life. Who else is in the chat? Suzanne Casey, hard life. This place is a fucking battleground. And when we get over the fact that it's not supposed to be, we can deal with it. and we can deal with it with each other on equal terms. And that's what I love about you, my friend. And Chappelle, yeah, fuck you. Your life's hard too. And Jeff Ray, yeah, fuck you. Your life's hard too. And Sage Universe, absolutely. But when we can deal with that on equal terms, we can look at this place and say, what are we going to do about it? Not how bad is it, but what can we do about it? And that's why I wanted to have you on, because you had a Mandela effect interest that was different than what I thought, and super curious and probably right, could be right. But I wanted to hear you because this place is fucking insane. And so how we deal with it is the point. And I hope that we deal with it in a fantastic way. And by the by, I love that two people thumb down this stream without even listening to it.
Oh, I don't care. I got 2 thumbs down too. But you know what? A thumbs down is still a thumbs up if you just turn around. Like,
Am I wrong, Paulie?
I say we stay the same way because if we turn upside down, then we only have 2 thumbs up.
Are we over it? Are we just like are we done? Are we over it? Are we just like fuck it? You guys, we have to be in this together. Quit bitching about your bull.
Hang on 1 second. Okay, I think I'm back.
You're back.
One time, yeah, a couple times my internet just like decides to like shut off. But yeah, no, what what you're saying about like the just like kind of F it, in a way, I think everybody should take that kind of attitude. And like, you know what? If you can't F it, and then go F yourself. Like, like you can't help the helpless for one, and people that are like us and want to help people, a lot of times we get caught in this rut of where we try to help somebody, or we try to wake somebody up that's close to us or that we care about, and they don't respond the way that we want them to, or the way that we hoped. And it's very defeating because we care so much about these people. Like, they could be family members, they could be like significant others, and we try to tell them these things about like Mandela, or about like, you know, other stuff that we've talked about, and it's just hard to keep them on a plane where they don't, you know, want to get defensive and distance themselves from you, because the truths that you're trying to explain to these, or the seeds that you're trying to plant, they just don't have the soil for it. They don't have the fortitude, the tools, a lot of people just can't handle a lot of it. And what we need to do as people who are awake and who can talk about all these things and not necessarily just commit to one side of a discussion. You know, we look at all the options. We don't have to commit to a side. There are no sides. Maybe there's more than one side. Look at platonic solids. How many platonic solids do you know that only have two sides? Come on. There's nothing that only has two sides. The only thing that has two sides is a line. That's it. There's no three-dimensional anything anywhere that has two sides. So it's always good to keep more than one side open. And you know, the people that can't grasp it, we need to, like, I'm not going to say cajole them, but we still need to care for them, because they don't know, and they'll never know, some of them, and that's fine. But if they're a member of your family, you still need to take care of them. You still need to be kind, and you still need to be acceptant of, if people don't want to believe that that the world is run by, you know, 1% of the population that controls 95% of the money, and they don't want to believe that, then, you know what? I wish I could be like them sometimes, to be honest with you, because not knowing that, I see a benefit in that too. If you just want to live a happy life and not worry about anything, you know, and just be completely oblivious that you've been a slave your entire life and not done anything important. It's, some people are okay with that. I get it. And
Sure.
who am I to throw a wrench in that machine of theirs? You know, like, they built that machine. That's their machine. It's not It's not me to fix. Uh,
Take the blue pill.
yeah, whatever they want to do.
Fucking trust me. Take the blue pill.
They have their uses, man. I just don't know what they are yet.
Don't take the red pill.
I take all the pills. I,
It's it's going to be so much more cumbersome, and you're going to have a responsibility for humanity to try to right the ship, and you're not going to have the ability to, and you're not going to have the outcome that you want. So put that red pill aside, take the blue pill, go buy the Discover thing at Target, and move on.
You know what I want to do is I want to change the whole, like, I get the red blue part, right? Because that's
Right?
like pretty much in everything. It's the dichotomy of almost all things. It's either red blue or white black. Um, but I think we need to figure out, maybe we can do this as a side project. Let's figure out a way that instead of pill, it's a different word. I don't, yeah, I don't know what the word is, like, but we could have some fun with that instead of
Yeah.
the pills, because I don't know, man. Pills, like, there's enough pills in people already. We need to we need to really start screwing with the algorithms, if you know what I'm saying.
No, you're right, and that was something I covered on Jeff's channel, and I'm trying to reach that for a second. Vanessa G, you're right. Um, the way you can screw with the algorithm is to make different choices than the ones you're instinctively gonna make,
Oh yeah, I
and
heard you talking about that today. Yeah, awesome.
go left instead of right. Drive around the block instead of going up the street.
Yep, take a different
And
way home.
yeah,
Yep, do
and
something.
if enough of us did that, the AI would freak out and it would glitch and we could see it. And it wouldn't be that you and I could see it, but it would be that regular people could see it.
Yep.
Because you and I are not regular people. We're not.
Hopefully.
No, we're not. And to deny that is retarded. It's just, we're not. And we wouldn't be here tonight if you and I were just regular people. And I would not have been on Kev Baker's show today if I was just a regular guy. Right?
Yeah, he's selective for sure.
Yeah.
The whole KBS family. I mean, that's how I think I met you. I either met you in the KBS chat, or I may have met you in the Crow 777 chat.
No, it was KBS.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was that too.
Yeah, and you welcomed me in when I was a new guy, and I appreciate that about you. But there's a point in our existence where we're just like, fuck it, it doesn't matter. It's something's going to kill me. I understand that. I don't get out of here alive, and I'm not going to participate in your nonsense. And I think that's where America's headed. I think that's where a lot of people are headed, and we'll see what happens.
I think you're right. I think what a good thing that we can do, sort of covertly, as sort of a, I guess, I hate using the word awake, all that, like. There's got to be a better word for that too. So two words we need to figure out. We need a replacement word for pill, and we need a replacement word for awake and woke. But the people that think the same way we do, that notice the same things we do, the people that are, I guess, like you could say, in our tribe humanity, team humanity, we need to just keep growing underground. Specifically, like don't just share stuff on your social media. Pick out certain people in your friends list and directly DM them links. As many personal DM links that you can send out to people, in my opinion, I think those are more effective than just sharing online, because if you're sending something directly to somebody, it's somebody who you obviously have a relationship with, that you have this sort of rapport where you're free to send them direct messages. So, in my opinion, if you're gonna share stuff, like, and you're worried about people giving you like resistance, like, because I've experienced resistance from my own father about some of these kinds of things. And my instinct, I mean, when my dad starts going along the lines of like, I'm crazy and I don't know what I'm talking about kind of thing, all I do is just kind of change the topic and just kind of make it so that it's more, you know what I mean? Like I'm sure everybody has those people in their lives where like you get talking about something and you start talking about the truth and then they get all like kind of weirded out and you kind of just have to change the topic because like you don't want to melt their brains or you don't want to get like kicked out of their house or whatever it is, right? Like
Right.
so I think that especially if you're just new to like waking up to a lot of things like Mandelas and like like the possibility of Illuminatis and like 9/11 inside job and fake school shootings and blah blah blah. Like if you're just getting into that now, you can't ever like don't ever try to convince anybody that doesn't know anything about this because if you're new, you're definitely not in a position to do that. For one, you're just going to end up losing friends, family members, and all kinds of other things you don't want to lose. Like,
Well, for sure, and I will tell you, as we all navigate the nonsense and the information that we have, when you're willing to share it with somebody, be mindful that they may not be coming from the place where they can understand it.
exactly. You know what? It's funny because on the open mic on the KBS Discord last night, I was talking to Renzo about before the show. I was talking about like she was telling me about all the stuff she wanted to talk about, and I jokingly said back to her, "Oh, thank God." Because I was worried that you were going to talk about some kind of like math that was over my head or something along those lines. And
Right.
and she said something back that really sort of like it resonated because and I'm not going to quote it directly. I mean, I probably could if I was more prepared, but I'm not going to quote it directly, but it was basically like why would I bother trying to explain something that I'm not capable of explaining in a manner that people can understand it?
Sure.
and
Yeah.
and to a lot of people that might come across as being very arrogant and very like like condescending almost, but I laughed hysterically. I thought it was one of the most innocent ways of saying that there's just something like it kind of almost resonated with the whole thing I keep saying, which is you can't help the helpless. Like
Right.
you just like there's some things you just can't do, and it's what, that's okay if you can't do them. That's what I'm trying to get across here is like for people that are like awake or whatever you want to call it, and they feel like they can't talk about any of these things, and that's why they're in these chat rooms and on these live streams and stuff. You know what? You are kind of alone because we're so spread out. Like this is where we come. We come to these chat rooms. We come to these channels because there aren't really that many of us out there, and we need to keep that in mind. And we also need to keep the fact that like the people that aren't on the same page as us might not be ready for it. And so there should be no judgment from us. In fact, it should be the opposite. It should be sympathy instead of judgment.
Well, yeah, and when people come from a different perspective, if we actually give a shit about humanity, then we have to take into account from where they're coming and treat them accordingly and not be mean and not be belligerent and not be, I'm smarter than you. If you're here now, then you want to know something. And if you can learn something from us, then great. And if you can't, fine, move on. But we have to extend all the grace that the Creator has given us to everybody else all the time, 24/7. And with Polly or with Felicia or with anybody, is to express that I have been given grace and I want to pay it forward. And I sure hope that somebody watching this got something out of this.
I got something out of this.
Good.
I mean, I got probably more out of this than most people listening, I would even argue. And if you know what, if you want to argue with me, then put it in the chat right now, and I'll argue right now. I'll do it. Um, this is
Don't be picking a fight with my chat.
no, I'm dead. I'm not picking a.
Don't pick a fight with my chat.
It's a pillow fight, dude. Don't worry.
I'm just kidding. You're fine.
It's a pillow fight. No,
You're fine.
this has been one of the most relaxed. Actually, this has been the most relaxed time since I've started being on a live mic. I think I'm getting more used to having the mic like down my throat when I talk.
Good.
Because I used to, turn my head away, and like there's all these things that people don't realize when you're streaming that you got to look at. I'm gonna have this conversation with Kev one day, hopefully, about because I used to tease him about multitasking, and I used to tell him like, "Yo, there's no way the human brain can ever multitask. They test U.S. fighter pilots on this, and it's impossible." But the level of multitasking that I've been exposed to since doing streams and trying to pay attention to chats, and there's also other chats. There's like private chats that you got to pay attention to as well, and like there's bots, and there's all kinds of other stuff that I didn't even know about. Like it's a level of multitasking that I didn't expect, and so
Right.
I just want to put out there that like whenever you do a live stream, there's a lot of work that goes into that. People, if you don't know, it takes practice for sure. Algo's a pro, and he's taught me a lot. Hopefully, that's coming through in the way that I'm performing, especially in the future. It's just a lot of people just take it for granted. Like you can't just go on and stream live. You got to pay attention to a lot of things. There's a lot of things your computer's doing in the background if you want it to. Like there's just so much stuff I never even imagined that I would have to pay attention to. And so I have
Well, I'll tell you what, I would say cool because you're in a realm. You have a great voice for radio. You have intelligent things to say, and you need to boost your channel to the point where you are streaming often, 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 and having cool people on and cool guests. Because, brother, you got a lot to say, and I hope you keep doing it.
Well, yeah, it's because of people like you and Kevin and Wookie and ZX, and there's the Rotman, Leslie, Connie. There's a whole bunch of people, and I'm sorry if I don't say your name, but they've done nothing but give me encouragement to do this. And I never set out to do this when I found Kev Baker's channel or your channel or anybody's channel. I never set out to talk on a radio.
For sure.
It,
Yeah,
it,
I was the first one, right?
it
I
was
was the person that grabbed you and dragged you out.
You were my first. Well, okay, I was on Jimmy Jean's show a couple of times before that, but you were my first show that was like pretty much like just dedicated to like just me and you talking and we went for like I think like almost 2 hours. It was like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that. And I've never been on a live stream longer than that. I guess except for today. But yeah, you were definitely my first. What I would say is my first real. I don't want to get creepy, but you popped my cherry, I guess.
First podcast that you actually got into, chilled out your nerves, and talked about what you had to say. And that's the deal. I mean, we're probably coming into a situation in September where we're not going to be able to do this.
I hope not, but yeah, there might. What I'm hoping is that there's maybe some kind of other like outlet that we could all move over to. But yeah, I don't see the next few months being very nice to humanity in general. It's gonna take some fortitude. We're gonna get smoked. We're gonna get beat up. All I can say to people is keep your hands up. Just don't let them hit you where it counts, and I think we should be okay.
Yeah, and we're going to have no choice because, pardon me, excuse me, I think the agenda is going to ramp up in a serious way in the next 6 weeks. And we're going to be faced with choices. Each one of us are going to be faced with choices. Where do we take the shot? Do we take the vaccine? Do we? And I have no idea how it's going to turn out. But I can tell you from today until then, you and I meeting up in September on YouTube is not going to be the same as it is today. And I'm thankful that you and I are here now. I'm so glad that we get to share stuff. And I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong.
I don't think I need to pray for that, because wherever we end up after here, I'm pretty sure we're gonna meet again, my friend. I think that we probably met for a reason, uh, and that reason may not have yet played itself out yet. So we'll see where it goes. Um, I do want to say that, maybe in September, things might not be as bad as we think. They will have changed probably as much as we expected, but maybe not as bad as we think. Um, there may be other ways out. There may be other things we can use as tools or as armor that we haven't discovered yet. Um, we're still growing as a people too, right? So like, but by the time September comes around, maybe we double in size. Hopefully, um, don't just throw in the towel.
You optimistic, esoteric bastard. I'm so happy you said that.
Yeah, if anybody's already thrown in their towel, I've got like spare towels that I can just give them another one. It's not too late. If you've already thrown in the towel, just talk to me. I'll give you a new towel. We're good. Let's go.
Right on.
Let's do this.
So, are you going to produce more content on your channel?
I'm actually, yes. I've hit a roadblock on my content because I've got music that it's coincidentally matches up perfectly with Midnight Rider by the Allman Brothers, and I'm trying to record the vocals from the Allman Brothers song to the music that I have, and because I'm my own worst critic, every time I record it, I say, "Nah, that's shit. I can do way better," and I keep deleting it and trying it again. So the problem with that is that it's not always a good environment where I live to record because it's noisy. like sometimes it's just noisy. So I was about to record a video uh, for subscribers, just because I talk a lot about plants on other podcasts, and
Right.
I just wanted to give like people basically not only a picture of my failures in container planting and gardening, but of my successes and my things that I've learned. I've had to move all my plants inside, so I was thinking I'd do a video about that. So as soon as I pick up my camera to do that, the camera says, "No, your battery's dead," so I gotta charge my battery. So then when I pick up my camera again to make the same video, my father calls me, and I end up talking to my father for an hour and a half online or on the phone. So I obviously wasn't making any content there. So, but yeah, there's content in the pipeline. It's just a matter of, I guess, picking which content I want to put out first and focusing on that. I tend to get distracted very easily, so bear with me.
Well, right on, and share what you want to share because I think the people who are here are mostly here listening to you, and amen, because you have a lot to say. But share what you got to share, build that channel, and let's keep moving forward, brother.
Yep, I agree, man.
With
We build the army. We build the army, and then once the army's big enough, then we can stand up.
Yep, absolutely. And with that, we're going to bounce.
Yo, that.
Thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much, Polly.
No problem, man. Anytime you want to have me on, just let me know. I really like the spontaneous ones too. So
Yeah, I wish this was. So hang around for a second after we kill the stream.
yeah, yo, that.
All right, brother.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, chat. Love you guys. Keep it up.
Stay bright.